one man who never shies in getting his point across is Steve Davis. Steve, good afternoon.
Richard Pascoe, hello.
Good. I've heard you've glued yourself to your desk. Is that true?
I have for the last 20 years.
Yes. It's, what do you think about the whole thing?
Oh, well, their compatriots over in the UK smashed petrol bowsers this week as well. And so, that's wanton vandalism. I know they've got a message, but there's more creative ways of getting a message across that are more effective. I think these end up just being stunts. I don't think they change anything. So they're venting their frustrations, but there are probably more effective ways to work behind the scenes.
I always remember I interviewed one of their spokespeople the last time I think it was on, and they tried to put a relation between them and Martin Luther King, and that I think was just a stretch too far, Steve, as I would say.
Exactly.
Steve, have you found somebody for us to talk about? Because when we get you on, it's all about an SA story. It's about people out there who normally don't get very, very much publicity at all.
I have, actually. He's a bloke I've been working with who I call the Adelaide Pool Whisperer. He does pool heating. His name's Anthony Sebastiani, and lovely bloke. But there are two things that got him into pool heating, and one is COVID, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. But the other one was he actually grew up in Alice Springs, and he tells the story that his mum made all the family take swimming lessons, even though they lived in the middle of the desert.
Well, you just don't know. There could be rain and things, and people get washed away, yes.
Exactly. So, but look, what I love about his story, because what I love doing is showing the human story behind, small businesses people use and take for granted, whatever. The strand that I love is the fact that as parents, our kids watch us. They learn from us. And he's lucky. His dad had his own business. He ran a bricklaying crew in Alice in the 80s. But Anthony remembers just watching the family go through the hard times and the good times. But during the hard times, one thing he remembers his dad doing was work dried up. If you remember, we had high interest rates and all that sort of schmozzle. Yep. And so it would have hit the building game. And so to keep his crew together, the dad would be bricklaying with the people through the day and then working in a pizza place at night making pizzas, just so he didn't have to let people off. Now, you think about it. There's a 9-year-old boy watching his dad do that. They're the sort of lessons that shape you. He wasn't one of these, that small percentage of horrid people who just exploit their workers. This is more common among the business owners I know. They actually care, and they put their workers first, and that's what they did. So great lesson to grow up and learn. The other thing, he then moved to Adelaide later, went to Uni SA to study management and marketing, and he was thinking he's going to start his own business when he was in his 20s, but everyone around him talked him out of it. Not his parents so much, they were still up in Alice, but everyone else talked him out of it, probably because they wanted to protect him, because you take a lot of risk when you run your own business, as we know.
As we know.
Yes, but you know what? He found work at Bianco's, iconic name here in the building sector here in SA. And he said there were two things he learned from working at Bianco's: work ethic and how you back up your business and respect your team. And he's got a great story. He was about 22 years old, new to the job. A tradie came in asking for a product. And he gave him the brand name, and he was actually after a concrete retardant. So it slows down the setting speed of the concrete. I imagine, depending on what they had to do, maybe shape it and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Anthony...
Look at you concrete expert, you.
Yeah. Anthony went and got the product with the same brand name, but was the accelerant instead. So the complete opposite of what was needed. Now, he knows that would have cost Bianco's some money, because they would have foot the bill for relaying that concrete, because it would have been all stuffed up, setting too quick for everything. But they didn't make him feel bad about it. They looked after their customer. And what he found is inside, he felt he had a debt to pay. He was happy he wasn't sacked, and he just doubled down to, make it up to them. And he's a bit of a stickler for details and nerdy things, and he kept details on them. He reckons he repaid that debt about tenfold during his career there because he was given that second chance, that respect, and he paid the business back in spades. And I think that's a great lesson for everyone to hear if you're in business and the way you back up what you do, but you look after your people as well.
Exactly right.
Something close to your world is he used to pull computers apart in the old days too, before we just get into the swimming pool heating. A couple of things you might appreciate. He blew up a few computers.
We've all done that.
One of his first lessons was he had a couple of old computers, one with a better motherboard than the other. He was going to take the chip out of it, the PCU, was it PCU?
Yes.
And the chip out of it. And you know those little wire things that bend down at 90 degrees that connect the chip to the board? Mm-hmm. He went, I wonder if they're all bent wrongly. He straightens them out and basically destroys the chip.
Yes.
And then he was playing with a video card. He said, you might know this one, the Voodoo 2. Right. Does that ring a bell?
Oh, roughly.
Anyway, he was doing stuff with it, and it wasn't working. He took it to a bloke, and the guy said, it's not working because you burnt it. There was smoke coming out of it. Anyway, that's what happens when you play in computers. That's why we need the Adelaide Techguy. But here's the thing, pool heating. Just before pool heating, before he got into this, he left Bianco's. He was working for the Ramset. They do all sorts of fastening, chemical fastening, mechanical fastenings and fixings. And if anyone's driven on that new extension of South Road that heads north, where they've got those big green panels that run along the raised highway. Yeah. Yep. That. They originally had a plan with each of those panels of the parapet there. They had 5 fastenings, the chemically fastened bolts, and it was undoing the potential integrity of it. So talking to Anthony when he was at Ramset, they went, he went and spoke to all his engineers in Melbourne and Adelaide. They worked out a way to get it from 5 bolts per panel down to 3, and that meant that over this stretch of about 4 kilometres, which is 8 when you think it's on both sides, they saved a heap of money and came up with a plan that was much more rigid than it was going to be. Here's a guy who's not studied engineering, but he soaks up data. He's so inquisitive, he just looks for those solutions. And that's what makes him so sought after in pool heating. And I've got a couple of quick stories from the pool heating business, because there are probably many people listening today who've got a swimming pool, and probably, here we are, the 27th of August, probably not using it, Richard.
Exactly.
Probably
right. Yes.
too cold.
Slightly.
So he actually had a couple of stories. There's a woman who spoke to him, I think it was yesterday. She's got a son with a disability, and they need the pool for work throughout the year. So she needed it to be at a good temperature year-round. He said, most people in the industry will say, no, don't worry about that. You shouldn't, because it's really expensive. Did you know that to have your pool swimmable over winter, say July and August in particular, the power it costs you to heat the pool for those 2 months is exactly the same as it costs for the rest of the year.
Wow.
It's the hardest time. Anyway, but he lays it out and people can make their decision, and she's gone ahead with it because she needs to. But the great one, the one I love, is a guy rang on Monday. He said, I just need a quote on a heat pump for my pool, electric heat pump. And Anthony goes, okay, and he has a bit of a look on Google and sees the guy's property. He says, well, what are you trying to achieve? Do you need to swim 12 months, 6 months, what? And he goes, I hadn't thought about it. He said, maybe sort of September to April. Okay, so Anthony says, now you can actually choose solar, electric or gas. They're all going to work well. And so it turns out that the guy has done his homework, and yesterday rings him up and says, okay, I'm ready to go solar. And so there are pros and cons with all these things, but what Anthony loves is why I really recommend this guy is he listens, and he's also the trouble fixer. There's a bloke who had a solar heating in, I think it was this guy actually, and it never worked. And so never got the pool cool enough. And he says, a warmer. He says, I know why. the solar panels, there were too few, and it was up so high that the pressure as the water went down had a dragging effect and was flattening out the little solar tubes on the roof, restricting the water flow. He said, if we change this, we move that there, you don't have to do much, and it's all resolved. So I'm glad I've crossed paths with him, because I'm curious about all sorts of things, and I would never have given a moment's thought to the fact that there's a heap of science behind pool heating, because I would have done what most people do that he encounters. They just, give me the biggest pump.
That's right.
And just be done with it.
Yeah.
And he says, well, that actually ends up putting pressure on the system. You get leaks. You don't need it. And so, just like the way you deal with tech questions, and you've helped me with my tech over the years, you go, hang on a minute, Steve, what are you trying to do? He's like the Adelaide Pool Heating version of the Adelaide Techguy. Great guy, and plus he and I have tried playing chess a few times since I've worked with him. He just wipes the board with me. So that my challenge is to one day,
Okay.
get that back. But he loves it. And this is just a guy who's going out there, does his work, loves it, and he's part of our fabric of society here in SA, just keeping people getting better use out of their pool year round.
Which is good. And you know what? As we've always said, we've got to love what we do.
Well, we do. And, he was working for another pool company. This is when COVID hit. And the owner of that company said, I'm going to throw it all in. And that's a silver lining he had. He said, okay, it's time for us to dive in the deep end, if you like, and take over the business. And swings and roundabouts, it's that resilience, bouncing up when you get knocked down, that makes the small business people among us survive. Those who do survive, they tend to have that resilient attitude to just make it happen. A bit like his dad back in Alice, keeping things going when the chips were down.
Which is great. Steve, where can we find out more about you?
Well, I run a small marketing consultancy called Talked About Marketing, so talkedaboutmarketing.com is probably the way to go. And we've got a bit of a mentoring program still running at the moment, which is $44 to get 3 hours of our time. I think it's coming to an end soon. It's through the federal government, but it's still there at the moment. All the details are on the homepage. And
can I highly recommend, I've actually got somebody else I talked to very early this morning who's going to ring you about doing that, who needs your advice. Oh, that's wonderful. And someone else that you referred to me just noted today that she's rising up the Google ranks now, just through some simple little things that she's made changes to. So it's her work. It's just, it's that little nudge from someone else, a bit like Anthony with the swimming pools and you with the tech. There we go. Great. Steve, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and no doubts we will talk soon. I'm about to go and shiver on the side of a netball court watching daughters play netball, so there you go. You put the token appearance in at the beginning, run and get a coffee, then put the token appearance at the end, Steve. All right? You see? Strategy. Way to go. There we go. Steve Davis, thank you very much, and hope we can get you back on FIVEaa soon. That'll be great. Thanks, Richard. Thanks, Steve.